On the issue of guns, we did see another mass shooting this week, this time out in California. An ex-Marine carried it out. The president has called him a very sick guy and suggested it was the result of PTSD. What can be done to prevent these, and what do you make of the president's comments?
Well, it is horrific what happened in California. It is yet another violent crime that one of the first inquiries needs to be, how could this have been preventable? It appears this young man had significant issues with mental illness. That needs to be examined. What were the red flags? How could this have been prevented on the front end? I can tell you, many of these mass murders, as you examine them after the fact, there are obvious red flags and failures in the system. If you take, for example, just a couple of days ago, we had the one-year anniversary of the shooting in Texas in Sutherland Springs, the biggest church shooting in history. I've spent a lot of time at Sutherland Springs. I've gotten to know many of the members of that church very, very well. In that instance, that shooting was preventable. The shooter there, it was already illegal for him to buy a gun. And the reason he was able to buy a gun is because the Air Force under the Obama administration never reported his felony conviction to the background check database system. And so when he ran for a background check, it came up clean. I introduced legislation in 2013 that would have audited every federal agency, made sure convictions were in the database, and then prosecuted felons and fugitives who tried to illegally buy guns. If that legislation had passed, if the Democrats had not filibustered it, that shooter in all likelihood would have been in federal prison instead of in that beautiful sanctuary in Texas murdering innocent people. There are common sense steps we can and should take concerning law enforcement. I've introduced twice now legislation that's called Cruz to direct law enforcement resources at stopping people, perhaps like the shooter in California, with serious mental illness before they carry out a crime. And you know, the pattern we've seen so far, Margaret, is that the Democrats filibuster any efforts to target the bad guys because their political agenda is instead to try to restrict the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. I have right now school safety legislation that would allow money to be directed to hardening schools, putting more armed police officers there, making our kids safer. The Democrats have been blocking that as well. I hope we learn to come together on common sense ideas.
We've got to leave it here, Senator, but I should note some veterans groups have called these comments from the president unhelpful.